The year was 2019 and Game Freak, the creator of the biggest franchise in the world, released a brand new game that wasn't Pokémon, and it flopped. Little Town Hero was officially showcased during a Nintendo Direct that same year, but even then it struggled to capture much attention. If you scroll through the comment section of the announcement video today, you'll mostly find two types of reactions. Those criticizing how bland and unpolished the game appears, and those praising Toby Fox's excellent soundtrack, which I'll touch on later in this video. You'd expect being associated with a company that generates billions would allow for a big budget for video games, but the truth is that even the Pokémon games only see a fraction of that money as budget. And for Little Town Hero, the budget was probably very small. Internally, Game Freak has a small team called Project Year dedicated to developing new ideas into new and fresh video games. Such are the examples of Giga Wrecker and Pocket Jockey, also available on the Nintendo Switch. Giga Wrecker might look a bit rough, but it's a fun platformer with a polished mechanic called the breeze manipulation that feels good to use throughout the game. And Pocket Jockey is just as addicting as it was on the Nintendo 3DS. Who would have guessed that mixing solitaire and horse racing was a good idea? If you have to try another Game Freak game, please play this one because I really want them to make a new one. However, even though their most recent titles targeted the Nintendo Switch, Project Year isn't something recent. If you go further back in time, you'll also find other games on the Nintendo 3DS. Harmonite is one of my favorite games on that console, and when I played it, I didn't even know it was developed by Game Freak. Looking at their Metacritic scores, we can definitely see that at least these games, apart from Little Town Hero, had a good reception. Although you should always take these numbers with a grain of salt, especially when there are so few scores to make these averages. Even so, looking at how poor the reception was, the lack of coverage, and having experienced the full game myself, I can safely assume that Little Town Hero underperformed. Which begs the question, what went wrong with Little Town Hero? How could a game with such an enticing promise, unique gameplay, a great soundtrack, a lovely art style, and a big company behind it flop so hard? And that's what I want to explore a bit more. Take a seat, relax, and let's go over these points together. The whole game revolves around an isolated village protected by a big castle that doesn't allow anyone to leave. This sounds a bit awful, but every villager appears to be content with their life inside these walls, except for a small boy named X, whose will to see the rest of the world often gets him and his friends in trouble. One day, after one of his failed attempts to storm the castle gates, he met a soldier who was cast out of the castle. The soldier takes a liking to the boy and offers to train him, and one day, after one of their regular practices, a monster suddenly appears, and it's up to X and his friends to defeat it and find out where this monster came from. From here, the story slowly shifts from a light-hearted tale about childhood dreams into something more mysterious. Eventually, more monsters start to appear, with each encounter bringing X closer to understanding the truth behind the village's isolation. But it also highlights how limited his world truly is. Although it's not the best story, I feel it delivered what it needed and gave proper development to its characters throughout the narrative, especially to X's rival. The story and characters were my favorite part of the game and what pushed me to finish it in the first place. I just had to know where the monsters came from. Although I admit, at some point, some aspects became predictable. I mean, who would have guessed that a character that looks like a bad guy is revealed to be a bad guy in the end, right? But even so, I was always eager to explore the village after each chapter, looking for new NPCs to talk to and maybe new areas to explore. Limiting the scope and characters truly helped flesh out the idea that this is an isolated village. Much like the villages around my hometown, where everyone knows each other and is always eager to lend a helping hand. And it's even more surprising that they managed to turn this into an actual combat mechanic. But before going through that, let's start from the beginning. Battling monsters is where the core gameplay of this game is, and it can be quite entertaining but infuriating at times. Despite being called an RPG, Little Town Hero takes inspiration from modern TCG like Hearthstone, for example. You have a deck with skills called Isits that cost powers to be turned into what they call a Dazit. Once you have a Dazit, you can put it against your opponent's own Dazit with the intent of breaking it. Breaking all of your opponent's Dazits will result into a chance turn, where you'll be able to attack attack its hearts, break them all, and you win the match. But it's not as simple as it seems, since before reaching the hearts, you must break a shield that has a certain amount of points, and it regenerates every time you attack a heart. Furthermore, to make things a bit more difficult, you can only attack the shield and the hearts with a red dazzit, which can only be used once a turn. Still following me on this one? This really makes you think before wasting one, and it made me favor the yellow dazzits more. Despite not being able to attack the hearts, they can be used several times in a turn until they break. Combining this with the support of blue dazzits really made my life easier during each battle. Still, there's another major feature that you'll have to get used to. In every monster battle, you'll be playing on a board, and by the end of each turn, you'll roll a die to move around. Scattered around the board are numerous traps that can be activated with a certain dazzit to deal damage to the monster. And this is where your neighbors take to the battlefield. You'll find them scattered around the board too, and they are more than happy to lend a hand. Some can do damage, others can heal you, and others can even give you new dazzits. Knowing how and when to use them is key to save turns and making battles end quicker. Although I really like this concept and the gameplay itself, I found myself feeling frustrated by how long a single battle took to complete, even if a monster wasn't particularly strong or difficult. The only monster that I genuinely found challenging were an optional boss and the last boss. Both took me forever, since breaking their shield was a very annoying task, and by long I mean way over 30 minutes of gameplay. Luckily, there is a way to increase your chances of winning and making battles a bit shorter. Although your character doesn't level up, you can improve your dazzits by spending Eureka points that you can earn after completing a battle or a side quest. If you walk around the village every chapter, you'll find new villagers that need your help. And I tried to help as many as I could, not just because I wanted the extra points, but because I truly enjoyed knowing more about each person in this village. The village itself has a considerable area, and by exploring it, you'll eventually find someone who has a quest for you. Some of these quests will only be available in certain chapters, so you should always be on the lookout for them. Miss one, and the only way you'll be able to get it is by starting a new save file. The game isn't that long to complete, but there are battles that you'll probably wish you didn't have to go through again. Occasionally, you'll also have the opportunity to battle optional bosses, but again, they are tied to specific chapters, and you should make sure you don't miss them either if you want to 100% this game, since this game has a Pokédex-like feature where you can see all the bosses you've defeated. It's a fun mechanic that rewards exploration, even though the game doesn't always make it easy for you. One thing that I found astonishing was how easily you can tell that this game was developed by Game Freak. From the character models, movement jank, to the annoying roadblocks that prevent me from exploring things for myself. At the beginning of the game, I wanted to walk around on my own, and there are roadblocks everywhere. I can't go to the open fields, I can't enter the castle, and I can't explore the village to interact with the characters and learn more about the world. I was already 1 hour into the game and I still felt shackled. And this is a sentiment that I felt throughout the entire game. There must be another way of making sure the player has a safe environment to explore without breaking the game and limiting their options, right? But being developed by Game Freak also means the monster designs were bound to be good, and I do have to give my praises to them. Each one I encountered was unique and detailed, and to flesh them out even further, they were given different soundtracks and different sets of skills, making each battle feel memorable. And as I mentioned previously, Toby Fox was heavily involved in the composition of the soundtrack, and Nintendo thought that this would help them sell more copies, since this fact was included in the announcement trailer as well as on their official website. But on their website there's also another mention, Hitomi Sato, responsible for composing some of the most nostalgic OSTs in Pokémon's history. So although it's great to see Toby Fox getting so much recognition, Hitomi Sato also deserved a mention, and this is just me doing my part. But ultimately, an amazing soundtrack from a proven independent developer and a veteran is not enough to save you from the monotonous boss gameplay. I did find out that lowering the difficulty does make things more bearable, and I would recommend anyone doing this, especially if you're playing it for the first time and not having a good time. Even if you play optimally, you'll just be doing the same thing over and over with no sight of its ending, and that's my biggest complaint with this entire game. Nothing is more heart-wrenching than losing a fight after 30 minutes of gameplay. I remember being so mad at the last boss that I had to take a break from the game and only came back a couple of days later. Now, with all this said, what went wrong? with Little Town Hero. Judging Little Town Hero's lack of success is quite easy actually. Usually, good games fail because of bad timing. Being released in a window of time when great games are already being released is always a good indicator of why your lesser known game failed. Such wasn't the case. When this game was released, the only notable game by Nintendo being released in the same month was Luigi's Mansion 3. It pains me to say this after all these years, but Little Town Hero is not a good game, unfortunately. I remember it rather fondly, and even looking back at my initial review I wrote for my blog, I wholeheartedly recommended it despite its flaws. But the truth is that Little Town Hero is nothing more than a mix of great ideas with bad execution, probably tied to budget constraints. Its only redeemable points are the music, art style, and a fantastic Big Idea edition, which is a great piece to have for any collector. It comes with a nice art book, some pins, a poster, and a CD soundtrack, which I played in my car for a couple of days while taking my daughter to school. I would like to say that Little Town Hero crushed any possibility of a new Project Gear game, since we haven't seen one since 2019. But there are other factors in the mix, like the pandemic hitting just a few months later. But if it's true, it's a shame because Project Gear is an important part of Game Freak, giving voices and shaping new and fresh ideas into unique games that we wouldn't see otherwise. Despite all of its shortcomings, Little Town Hero was still a memorable experience, one that lingered on my mind and got me to eventually make this video. Proving your game doesn't have to be a perfect masterpiece to have any sort of impact on someone's life. Thank you again, and if everything goes well, I'll be seeing you again next time with brand new content.